All right, so in part one of Learn Faster, we talked about open loop skills and closed loop skills. Open loop skills being the what Daniel Coyle, the author of the Little Book of Talent, calls hard skills. They're like more of the okay, I'm practicing, I'm making sure my tennis serve is perfect, or I'm making sure that I know how to play the right notes in this song. Then we have our closed loop skills, which are what Daniel Coyle defines as soft skills, which are more free-flowing skills, like dribbling through traffic in a basketball game or improvising as a jazz musician. So the reason why we defined why we needed to know the difference of those skills, because it's like, why do we need to know? Well, we need to know because they are acquired in different ways. They're practiced in different ways, and so that's what today's video is about. So let's start with hard skills or open loop skills. In the Little Book of Talent, it says that, or Daniel Coyle says that you want to work like a careful carpenter when you're practicing these skills. That means you want to be, when you're first learning them, you want to be slow, you want to be methodical, you want to be very, very keen, very hyper aware of the errors that you're making and fixing them in real time. So these skills are more about precision than they are creativity. They're more about doing it exactly right than they are about being able to adapt, right? So here's a cool quote from the book. It helps to be careful, slow, and keenly attuned to errors. Work like a careful carpenter. I literally just said that, but in the book, there's examples that are defined by some of the higher achieving institutions in terms of education, and one good quote. One really good quote from that section is, each fundamental, because hard skills are essentially fundamentals, like learning the scale on the piano or your guitar, or just learning fundamental movements, tennis serve, that's fundamentals, right? Each fundamental, no matter how humble seeming, is a precise skill of huge importance, taught via a series of vivid images and worked on over and over until it is mastered. The vital pieces are built rep by careful rep. So it's a very, like, practicing hard skills is very, it requires a lot of patience. And I feel like this is where a lot of people falter, is because they want to jump right into doing the crazy stuff, but they're too impatient and too not resilient enough to practice these hard skills in this way. So when I work with my students, in terms of like my piano students, because I know most of the time they're not practicing like this on their own. When we're practicing on our own, a lot of times we're just trying to figure it out, and we're kind of just jumping in there with no game plan. But when I'm there with my student, I tend to have them actually practice their patience by playing with the metronome and by making sure that they're not going ahead of the metronome. Because even if you can play faster than the metronome, for anybody who doesn't know, the metronome is like the ticking sound that musicians and other people practice with in order to keep your time, in order to practice keeping time. So it's like, even if you can play the song much faster than the metronome, restricting your tempo to a specific speed, it engages a different part of the brain, and a part of the brain that is very uncomfortable to use. So it's good for building these hard skills. So now let's move on to soft skills. or closed loop skills. So same book, The Little Book of Talent. It has about 52 tips on how to, how to learn faster or whatnot. But this specific section about soft skills says, so with hard skills, we need to be like a careful carpenter. But when we're practicing soft skills, we need to be more like a skateboarder, right? And for anybody who doesn't know, skateboarding is very nuanced. It's very free flowing. I feel like a lot of people do it. I'm a longboarder myself. I'm not a skateboarder by any means, but I do longboard. And one of the things about skateboarding and longboarding is that based off of your terrain, like what skate park you're at or what trail you're on, there's a lot of like bumps, there's a lot of curves, there's things that force you to change your trajectory in order to adapt to the situation. So in skate parks, there's rails that you got to jump over or grind on, and then there's loops and all that types of stuff, right? So that's how we want to practice when we're practicing a soft skill. So here's a quote from the book. When you practice a soft skill, focus on making a high number of varied reps and on getting clear feedback. Don't worry too much about making errors. Don't worry about falling off your skateboard. Definitely got to learn how to fall, right? But the important thing is to explore. Soft skills are often more fun to practice, but they're also tougher because they demand that you coach yourself. Each session, ask yourself what worked and what didn't. Soft skills are always, I feel like soft skills are the harder, even though they're called soft skills, I feel like they're the harder skill to learn. Hard skills are a lot more straightforward to practice. You practice the thing that you're trying to do over and over. You do it over and over, the hard skill will stick. But soft skills require more creative approaches to practicing. Like when I'm practicing, let's say I make a beat, right? I make a track, and one of the ways I practice soft skills on keyboard is I'll practice, even if I don't end up using keyboard in the track itself, I will practice improvising to the beat, because a lot of times, like, it's a little weird. Like sometimes the harmony of like electronic music is different, and the drums and the rhythm, it's all different. So practicing improvising to those is like, it always feels like, okay, what am I even trying to do here? Like there's a lot of options, but it feels like there's none at the same time. So it gives me the space to practice the soft skill of improvisation when it comes up to keyboard. But let's talk more about soft skills. So we're playing like a skateboarder. We want to be aggressive. We want to be curious. We want to be experimental, and we want to be seeking to challenge ourselves with the practice. So one way I practice soft skills, another way I practice soft skills is by setting the tempo. Let's say I'm practicing a hard skill, setting the tempo to like at a pace that I'm not sure if I can do. So if I know I can do like 80 BPM, it's setting it to like 90 or 100, just to see, just ramble through it. I'll probably like trip all over the place and not really get maybe not really hit a lot of right notes or hit a lot of wrong notes, but that's the point, because I started adapting by playing the rhythm, maybe not exactly straight, but swinging it a little bit. And swinging it a little bit allows me to play the notes in a span of time that I wanted to, but it was like a different type of rhythm, if that makes sense. So this is that's another way that I practice soft skills. So we want to, when practicing soft skills, we want to like test ourselves. We want to see how far we can go. We want to see how high we can jump. We want to see if we can play blazingly fast and how many times we can do it without messing up, or if we can do it without messing up. And but that's the complete opposite of how we practice hard skills. Hard skills, we don't want to mess up. We want to do it slow and we want to do it right. Because if you practice like that when it comes up to hard skills, then your fundamentals are out of whack, and then you're basically setting a cap on how good you can get. So when it comes up to this situation now, the book goes even further and says, honor the hard skills. Emphasize the hard skills. Prioritize the hard skills. And even though I find this to be true, and I find this, I'm not going to say even though I find this to be true, I find this to be absolutely true, because soft skills are nothing without hard skills. Like, no matter how creative you are, if you don't have the dexterity to move across the keyboard, you can't get your point across. No matter how like adventurous you are on your skateboard, if you don't know how to stay on it without falling off, then you're always going to fall off. So it's like, honor the hard skills just means hard skills are something that you need to be practicing way more, essentially, especially in the beginning. In the beginning, before you're essentially like have almost mastery over what it is that you're doing. I won't say I won't say mastery. I'll just say I'm not gonna try to improvise in the key of D major before I actually know the D major scale. Because there's a cap. Not to say that you can't go outside of the D major scale or whatnot, but that's getting into complicated music theory. It doesn't make sense to practice improvising in the key of D major if you don't even know the key of D major. If you can't even play the D major scale, it doesn't make sense. If you don't know that how many sharps or how many black keys are in the scale and where they are, then you're gonna hit wrong notes every time you try to do it. So it's like I said, wrong notes, right notes, improvisation, that's a whole nother ballpark. Like, some notes can be wrong and still sound right, but that's a whole nother conversation. But essentially, you can't learn how to do a crossover in basketball if you don't even know how to dribble. So you can't learn how to maneuver around the court if you can't even go behind the back without losing the ball. I'm assuming you get the point by now. So we honor the hard skills, and the beautiful way of looking at this that I thought was really cool was, in the book it says, one way to keep this idea in mind is to picture your talent as a big oak tree. So I'm going to picture my musicianship or all the other skills that I'm trying to learn, my musicianship, my knowledge on fitness, money, whatever it is. Look at that skill as a big oak tree, right? A massive, thick trunk of hard skills, the foundation of the tree, the thing that holds the tree together, with a towering canopy of a bunch of flexible, soft skills. So the soft skills are like the branches and the leaves and the fruit, right? But before any of the branches, the leaves, the fruit can even grow, the trunk has to be solid enough to not fall over